Just a couple things ago, we're gonna have some cards there. It's 60 minutes for each first statement and then 30 seconds for rebuttal. So what was it? 60 seconds for each initial statement and then 30 for rebuttal. Yes. Okay, so I'll give you 30 seconds and then time. And then I'll try to give you like 10. I'll go. Yeah. I'll go over the format again. So like I went over it at the beginning of that one, but I'll just go over it again here. So that it's Thank you so much for coming today. It's a pleasure. Thank you. The students are doing a great job. Yeah. If you want to All right, good evening. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out this evening. My name is Jonathan Brown. I am the president of the UYO Political Science Club.
And my name is Mackenzie Armijo, and I'm the president of the Criminal Justice Club.
We'd like to thank you all for coming out. We are streaming this. We are live right now. And if you are at all interested, we will have a recording up and available afterwards on the UYO Political Science Club's YouTube page. Yes, oh, sorry. Reminder to everyone to silence your phones before we start, just to make sure that there's no rogue noises going on during the debate. I would like to start by thanking everyone that's made this all possible. I would thank President Ed Seidel. I want to thank Mike Smith, head of government relations here at the university. I want to thank Dr. Stephanie Anderson, who is our faculty advisor here at the UYO Political Science Club. She's done a fantastic job. I'd like to thank all of my officers, Gregory Fornstrom, our vice president, Lindsay Hall, our communications director, and Reese Davies, our treasurer.
I'd also like to thank the members of the Criminal Justice Club who assisted. So, Shayna, our vice president, Grant, our secretary, and Carly, our public relations officer. I would also like to thank our faculty advisors, Claire White, as well as Dan Fetzko. I would also like to thank the Criminal Justice Club for helping put together some of the questions that you will hear today.
And finally, I'd like to extend special thanks to our moderator this evening, Mr. Jeff Victor of the Laramie Reporter. He did a fantastic job at our clerk debate earlier tonight, and I'm gonna pass it over to him.
Awesome. Well, welcome everyone. We are here to meet and hear from our candidates for Albany County Sheriff. I am going to cut to them, give them 2 minutes each to introduce themselves, and then we're going to come back to me. I'll go over the debate format and just a couple other notes, and then we'll really begin. So, Mr. Senior, would you like to start?
Again, thank you, Jonathan and Jeff, for hosting this, and all the students involved in putting this on. It's really great to see so many people here. I believe our political system is far from perfect, but it is the best in the world. So having the civic engagement is what really makes it work. So it's great that you all care enough to be here. A little bit about me. My name's Joel Senior. I'm a candidate for sheriff. I'm going to keep it real brief because most of this information is on my webpage under joelseniorforsheriff.com. But I started my career in law enforcement back in 2001 at the Laramie Police Department. I worked basically every aspect of law enforcement that you can. I was a field training officer, a firearms instructor, a use of force expert at our department. I went into detectives in 2009, where I spent the remaining 9 years or 10 years of my career at Laramie Police Department in investigations. In that capacity, I worked everything from felony larcenies all the way to homicides and cold cases. My specialty was sexual assaults and crimes against children and women for the most part. After leaving the police department, I became an investigator for the state underneath the Wyoming Livestock Board, where I've been for about the last 2 years, doing investigations related to rural crimes such as import and export of livestock, thefts. And about the other half of my job is providing training to sheriff's offices related to rural crimes.
Thank you. And Sheriff Applehans.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you guys taking the time to come and engage in this sheriff's debate. I am Aaron Applehans. I'm your current sheriff. I came to Laramie about 25 years ago, attended the University of Wyoming. I am a University of Wyoming alumni. 2003 with a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering. I met my wife here, and we've raised our family here ever since. Ended up working for the university for about 7 years in the admissions office doing recruitment, marketing, public relations, and then moved over to the University of Wyoming Police Department in 2010, where I spent the last decade doing a variety of different police work here on campus. I started out as a crime prevention officer, also worked patrol. Then I was promoted to detective, where I worked a lot of different types of investigations, most of those felony investigations. Promoted again to sergeant, where I was able to run patrol and other divisions within the University of Wyoming Police Department, as well as a lot of administrative duties. And then this opening became available, and I went through a selection process where I was appointed as county sheriff. So, and I've been that sheriff the last 16 months. Since then, we've really turned things around in the sheriff's office. Took over for a sheriff's office that had a lot of problems. You guys might have seen that in the news, where we had some deputies breaking the law, about 160,000 in the hole. Everything we've done is to turn that around and really start to focus on de-escalation training, mental health crisis response, substance abuse programs in the jail, so that when people get out of jail, they could stay out of jail, and then trying to reduce the traffic fatalities that we have here within the county. And so it's a little bit about me and the things that we've been doing as my time in sheriff.
So here's how it's going to work. I'm going to direct a question to candidate A. They'll have a minute to answer. Then we cut to candidate B, who will have a minute to respond. Then we can come back if candidate A wants it, another 30 seconds to add more. And if that response includes any attack or direct reference to your opponent, then we'll cut back to the opponent and you two can carry on. Over here, you will see signs when you're at 30 seconds to go and when it's at time. And when it's at time, I'll cut you off. I would like to ask the audience to please stay silent for the duration of this. It is okay to applaud at the end, but we just ask for silence so that we can have a good, clean, respectful debate. And also on that note, if you could silence your cell phones, that would be fantastic. The questions today come from a variety of sources. Some of them were written by me, some of them were submitted by the Criminal Justice Club here at UW, and others were submitted by the public. If you hear a question that is kind of like a question that you submitted, but sounds a little bit different, that might be because I took the questions, combined some that were basically the same, and added some context to others, just so we're not asking the candidates the same question over and over again tonight. There's one more point I would like to add, which is that I think 2 of the questions tonight will deal with suicide. If that's going to be too much for you to listen to, there's no shame in excusing yourself. But I just wanted to put that out there so you're aware and it doesn't sneak up on you. All right, candidates, are you ready? We're going to start tonight by talking about mental health. Mr. Senior, 4 years ago, a deputy shot a man suffering from mental illness. Both of your campaigns have stressed the importance of improving responses to mental health calls for service. The co-response model is one option, which would see law enforcement personnel responding to a scene alongside mental health professionals. But we as a community and as a society have a shortage of mental health professionals. So, how can you ensure that residents in need of emergency mental health care get the help that they need and are not just put in greater danger?
Mental health response is a major concern for any law enforcement. Currently, the program that the sheriff's office is using is CIT training. Not all their deputies are trained in CIT. In fact, only one deputy has attended CIT training in the last 18 months or so. All deputies need to attend that training. And there's other programs out there, such as Miracle through NTOA that I'm looking at, and we'll assure that all deputies receive training in how to respond to those crises.
Sheriff Applehans?
Yes, the way that we can ensure safety in the community for mental health crisis response is to do 3 separate things. Increase the training that we have for our deputies, which we've done. We utilize a variety of different sources for mental health crisis training. Crisis intervention training is one of those, which we've had, and then we're also hosting one next week. Mental health first aid is another training that a lot of our deputies have started to go through, to where they can get the training that they need to go through there. And so using that training and then bringing it out into the community. The second thing that we can do is collaborate more with those community health resources, so that when we go out there, you don't necessarily need a law enforcement response to a mental health crisis. We can refer to those resources and get the people that need the help from the people that can provide the best help.
Thank you. Do you have anything to add, Mr. Senior?
I guess I would just express my concern that we've had almost 2 years to get these deputies trained, and one deputy, Deputy Hanover, is the only one that's received that training so far. And then I'd just like to point out that we really need to have a community response to for these individuals. A lot of the times we'll take someone in to get help, and they're released from BHS before they, before I even finish my report. We really need an option to get them help after they're released.
Thank you. Applehans, would you like to respond?
Yes, like I said, we've gone through a variety of trainings with a lot of different deputies. We have about 46 deputies on staff as well. And so we don't necessarily just focus on the one deputy that goes through the training, trying to train in the entire division, entire unit. And we'll continue to do that as we get more people in, as we get new people in, and as we continue to provide those trainings for the community.
Thank you. Sheriff Applehans, the United States has 5% of the world's population, but 20% of its prisoners. The county sheriff runs the county jail. So what responsibility do you have as sheriff to reduce the number of people behind bars?
So the responsibility to have as sheriff is the same when you go out into the community and you're giving law enforcement response. You're trying to do what's best for that situation at hand. Sometimes that is an arrest, sometimes that's a citation, sometimes that's a warning, and then also using the criminal justice system to find what's the best situation to help that individual, whether that be alternative sentencing programs, a traditional sentencing programs, or any other community health programs as well. So my responsibility with my office is the same as it always has been, is to go out, provide that law enforcement service, and find what is the best solution for not only public safety, change behavior if need be, and find the best help that's needed for those people that we respond to.
Mr. Senior?
Correct. The county sheriff is responsible for running the jail. That's one of their main statutory obligations. As county sheriff, it's important that you partner with your community groups such as drug court and juvenile court. Really, the goal of community policing is not to put a lot of people in jail. It's to prevent people from committing those crimes and to take care of the ones that are incarcerated.
Anything to add?
Yes, like I said, the Albany County Sheriff's Office partners with a variety of different entities, juvenile drug court, single point of injury, the gatekeepers program for suicidal people. We have a lot of different community programs within our detention center, AA, other substance abuse programs, other mental health providers in there to help as well. And so we do take that community approach to where, we can help the people that come through our jail or the people that don't come through our jail.
Thank you. Mr. Senior, your opponent has placed an emphasis on hiring more diversely. Would you do the same?
My emphasis is on hiring the most qualified individuals to serve our community. I believe if you do that appropriately and fairly, you're going to have a very representative department of your community, and that will happen naturally. You're not going to have to turn away applicants that are maybe the most qualified in order to specifically target diversity.
Sheriff Applehans.
Yes, the way we hire at the Albany County Sheriff's Office is to invite as many people as we can to our testing process and then go through the statutorily required requirements that we have to make a hire. And so we don't have any quotas. We don't turn away people because of any type of diversity classification. We take the best people that are there. And like it said, it happens naturally. When you get more people into the pool and you create a place for that, you'll have more diversity within your department.
Thank you. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I guess I would just say if that's the case, I'm a little confused about a hiring advertisement for underrepresented populations and maybe what you meant by that.
Yes, what we do is, like I said, we advertise so that we can make it welcoming for those underrepresented populations. Traditionally, law enforcement isn't very welcoming for those people. And so we advertise to say, hey, we have an environment where you can come and work, where you can come and thrive, be a part of the community, and be a part to serve Albany County.
Thank you. This was an issue raised at another forum that the two of you attended, but I would like some clarification. Sheriff Applehans, would you commit to publishing your policy manual and your agency's budget online for anyone to access at any time?
Yes, the county budget is already published online, so you guys can access that anytime. Every single line item that we have, every single deputy's salary is already published. We do that regularly. So, and yes, we can publish our policies and procedures as well. Those are always welcome to anybody who wants to take a look at them.
Mr. Senior?
Sure. I'll give you the same answer I gave at that forum. Lots of agencies are already publishing their budget and policies online. I believe that's going to become, the best practice. Unfortunately, the transparency with our current sheriff's office is not there. I requested both of those items in a FOIA request on September 9th through my campaign. Haven't received either of them at this time, even though the sheriff's department budget is mandated under state statute to be available for inspection at any time.
Sheriff Applehans.
Those FOIA requests come in through the office, they go through legal, and then legal goes ahead and fulfills those requests. So I'm sorry that Mr. Senior wasn't able to get his request on time, but as we've reiterated, he's more than welcome to go ahead and go online and Google the Albany County budget, and he won't have to go through the process to see what it is that he's looking for.
I can give you 30 seconds if you want it.
The county budget is not broken down to specific line items of the sheriff's office budget, and the sheriff's office budget is not available online.
Okay. Mr. Senior, law enforcement agents are authorized to use force in some circumstances. They are allowed to detain, fight, and even sometimes kill civilians in the course of their duties. With you as sheriff, when is it acceptable for a deputy to kill someone?
In defense of their life, their personal life, or the life of someone else, or if someone else is at risk of serious bodily injury.
Sheriff Applehans?
It's the same answer. That's what the law dictates. And so, like I said, in defense of their life, in the defense of somebody else's life as well, and in defense of general public safety.
Thank you. Sheriff Applehans, since you became sheriff 2 years ago, there have been 3 deaths in the county jail reported to DCI. County sheriffs are not required to report jail deaths to DCI, yet you did. Why?
When you have a critical incident that happens, it's important to have that transparency with the public and make sure that you have an outside agency come and investigate that fully so that there's no conflicts of interest. That's what we did with our 3 critical incidents that we had within the detention center. Like I said, 2 of those were due to mental health crisis and 1 was due to opioids that were introduced. And that's why we've really tried to take a good hard look at what the mental health situation is in Albany County so that we can come up with better solutions. We've also, like I said, tried to take a look at substance abuse programs, substance abuse enforcement as well, so we can really start to tackle opioid epidemic that's really starting to creep up in Albany County.
Mr. Senior?
Yeah, that's correct, that DCI investigates all critical incidents, whether it be a shooting or an in-custody death for all agencies within Wyoming. The sheriff's office requesting that they do that is nothing outside of the ordinary. The problem I have a hard time with is he used the word transparency in his response. No press releases were ever done on those in-custody deaths. The public was not made aware of them in any way. In fact, up until the last League of Women Voters Forum, I don't believe he addressed those publicly at all.
And this is preempting my next question, so how about you take a minute to respond to that and we can keep going.
Sure. There was an article in the Boomerang about the opioids overdoses that we had as well. Out of respect for the family in our 2 suicides, like I said, we report those to DCI, but we don't necessarily release those names to the public for the suicides that we had.
Mr. Senior, also a minute.
You can certainly release those incidents without releasing names if individuals are dying in custody at the detention center. I mean, it's obvious that the public should have that information.
Sheriff Applehans?
Yes, like I said, we report it and we have, like I said, an independent investigation in there, like I said, for those suicides. And we go ahead and like I said, take care of the family that had to go through that situation as well. And so, we're pretty proud of the way that we've handled that situation, especially with the families that were involved.
Okay, again for Sheriff Applehans. After any of the 3 deaths that have happened, have you changed any policies or disciplined any employees?
We've changed some policies and procedures, but we haven't disciplined any employees. So through those investigations, no fault was shown through those DCI investigations that we did anything wrong. What we did change, though, like I said, especially for the opioid deaths, that was introduced in a way, I think the best way to characterize it is that an inmate introduced it in a place where we can't necessarily search up in their cavity. And so we had to change the way we do our searches. And so changed our policy. We got a body scanner in so that we can go ahead and start screening those at the door so that when we have to take legal action in terms of search warrant to try and remove those opioids, we can see that early, have early detection before it spreads within our detention center.
Mr. Senior?
Just to be clear, the article in the Boomerang regarding the fentanyl overdoses was reference individuals that survived their overdoses, not anyone that unfortunately perished in the jail. And I did bring that to the public's attention, and only after that was brought to the public's attention did the sheriff requests the purchase of a body scan for the detention center.
The reason for the purchase of the body scanner is because we started to find out through our investigations that opioids, specifically fentanyl, is now being pressed into pill form. Before it was usually in powder form, and we were able to detect it, find it at our front door at the detention center. With pill form, it makes it much easier to hide and to smuggle in. And so we saw a problem and created a solution by purchasing that body scanner so that we can now screen everybody that comes through.
Thank you. And the final question on this subject. When people are arrested, their neighbors, their friends, their family members might see them get arrested, or they might hear about it secondhand. Given how many people have, in the past 2 years, died in custody, how can people trust that they'll see their arrested friend, family, or family member again?
Like I said, we're statutorily required to take care of all of the inmates that are in there. And so what we've done from the previous administration is to bring in more mental health professionals to come in. We've changed our overall health provider as well. The one that we had before was not doing a good job operating without a license. And so we've brought in quality medical people to come in, quality equipment, and also hired quality deputies to where some of the instances that they had before aren't going to be repeated in the future.
Really, I mean, staffing is an issue. If you don't have enough staff to properly man the jail and to check inmates and to monitor all of the cameras inside the pods. Training is an issue when you have brand new detention deputies that haven't even gone to the academy, working a shift and going into pods by themselves when they've received no use of force training. That's a problem. So proper staffing and training and the detection equipment will go a long ways to keep inmates safe.
Sheriff Applehans, anything to add?
Yes, and as I reiterated, we have proper staffing, we have the proper training, and we're 100% confident that our staff can definitely take care of the detention center the way we always have. Unfortunately, like I said, we have critical incidents that occur that we have to respond to. We will continue to do so to ensure everybody is safe within our detention center.
All right. Moving on, I'm going to combine a couple of questions we got from the Criminal Justice Club here. Mr. Senior, a Laramie Police Department officer was recently revealed to have been a member of the Oath Keepers, an extremist group. What would you do if you learned a deputy was a member of the Oath Keepers, the Three Percenters, or another extremist group?
Sure. Every complaint would be handled the same way. There would be an internal investigation that's conducted by someone that's actually trained to do internal affairs investigations, not by the county HR. And each incident could have different results. It would depend a lot on the specific circumstances. You know, if the deputy had joined with intents to overthrow the government in 2020, that would be handled a lot different than an individual that had been walking through a city park and saw a booth belonging to a patriotic group and put his name down on the email list to receive a free t-shirt. I mean, it's all situational dependent.
Sheriff Applehans.
Yes, under my leadership, we would have an internal investigation by an outside agency, not an internal one. Like county HR is an outside agency to be able to do that. Peace officers are required to remain neutral and unbiased in every single situation. So our internal investigation would be to look into those circumstances and see if that deputy is able to maintain that neutrality and continue to serve the community. Real simple answer is if they're not going to be able to do so, then they're not going to be able to work for my department. And if they are going to be able to do so, then they can continue to work for my department.
Anything to add? Please don't interrupt, sir. Sir, I'm sorry, we can't add questions. Again, a question from the Criminal Justice Club. Sheriff Applehans. The Cheyenne Police Department has a use of force review board that's part civilian. Should we adopt the same here, either for your agency or for all local law enforcement?
I can really only speak to my own agency, and I've said multiple times that I'm open to an advisory board. How the community wants to form that advisory board, whether that's for use of force incidents, hiring, whatever other issues that the community wants to get involved in, I'm always willing to go ahead and take a look at that, take that under an advisement, and build the board to suit both the community and both the sheriff's office on whatever situation that board is tasked with.
Mr. Senior?
So let me be clear that I am 100% in support of community involvement with the sheriff's office. A police use of force review board is a very specific type of board. They, to be effective, they need to have access to personnel files. They need to have access to open investigations. They need to have the ability to discipline officers. That's something completely different from what Sheriff Applehans is agreeing to. Much like what he said, if the community wants involvement and wants some sort of like a sheriff's advisory board, I would be open to that. However, state statute prevents me releasing information from an officer's personnel file. I would be happy to give you my own personnel file if I could, but I'm going to protect the rights of my deputies and not allow the intrusion into their own personnel files.
Thank you. Sheriff Applehans?
Yeah, the model that they have in Cheyenne ensures confidentiality. I've been in contact with former Chief Brian Kozak, who's also running for sheriff, and we've discussed how that board would look as well. Just so everybody else knows, we had a community board when I first started as well, started through the Department of Justice. And so we were able to tackle a few issues. And the community that was on it was pretty satisfied to where, we didn't need to continue the board anymore. So,
Thank you. Anything to add? Okay. Mr. Senior, you have said that the sheriff has the power to deny enforcement of any federal, state, or local laws that do not secure your rights. Can you give us an example of a law that you would refuse to enforce?
I can't make it more specific than that. There's a lot of folks within our community right now concerned about federal overreach and actions that our federal government is taking. So if they were to enact a law such as a firearms confiscation or restrict our movement due to a well, like during coronavirus, they attempted to restrict our movement further. I would support the rights of our citizens to not follow those specific laws.
Sheriff Applehans.
yeah, two things with that. As sheriff, you take an oath to uphold the United States Constitution, the Wyoming Constitution, the Wyoming state law. And as sheriff, I don't get to pick and choose the laws which we enforce. It's my job to enforce all the laws equally. Secondly, whenever there is a conflict within our system between a federal law or a state law, that's where the third branch of government comes in with the judicial to decide whether that law can be put forth or is denied. And so as sheriff, I've always let the judicial system decide and then fulfill my oath in terms of enforcing the law that's on the books once it's been decided.
Anything? Mr. Senior, who makes the determination that a law is unconstitutional? Is that up to the discretion of the sheriff?
Well, our Constitution and our Bill of Rights determine if a law is constitutional. If you are arrested and convicted, you definitely have the right to question whether your rights were violated. I've been doing this job for a long time. I've made probably hundreds of felony arrests. I've had some of those convictions appealed, and I've never had a case overturned on appeal because I violated someone's rights. That's something I take extremely seriously, and I believe in doing a good job while not violating someone's rights.
Sheriff Applehans?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question one more time?
Jumping off of the last question, I was asking who makes the determination that a law is unconstitutional? Is that up to the discretion of the sheriff?
It is not up to the discretion of the sheriff. Usually the judicial branch will decide whether a law is unconstitutional or constitutional, depending on the process that it goes through and if it meets that constitutional muster, whether that's at the federal level or at the state level.
Thank you. And we're going to stay on you, Mr. Senior, for just another 2 questions. The line that county sheriffs can halt laws they deem unconstitutional is the core tenet of the so-called constitutional sheriffs movement. What do you think of that movement?
Sure. In fact, one of the reasons I've decided to jump into politics as sheriff is I've seen a lot of groups promote division amongst our population. As far as the Constitutional Sheriffs Association, on face value, they have a lot of the same beliefs I do as far as protecting everyone's constitutional rights. However, the individual in charge of that group was involved in an incident in Arizona where he was hired as a tactical consultant, and he made the decision to place women and children in between the group that he was with and federal agents, and I can't support someone that would make that type of tactical decision.
Sheriff Applehans, are you familiar with the constitutional sheriffs movement, and what do you think of it?
I am, and they've reached out to me when I was first appointed, and I flat out told them, no, I'm not going to be part of that group. Like I said, law enforcement has to remain neutral so that we can do law enforcement fact-based and do what's best for the community. And when you start taking sides from one group or another, you really let your biases come out in that police work, and that's not quality law enforcement that we need here in Albany County. And so had a little bit of that in the past administration, and I'm not going to make the same mistakes.
Mr. Senior, anything to add? All right. Again, for Mr. Senior, on your website, you say, every department is greatly shaped by the worst behavior the leader is willing to tolerate. What is the worst behavior that your opponent, the current sheriff, has been willing to tolerate?
Well, I've had a hard time with running against Aaron here when his whole platform is transparency, and that's been one of the major components lacking from the sheriff's office. he, in our first League of Women Voters Forum, they asked us what one of the most important things we look for in a new hire is, and pretty much down the line, it was honesty. Moving further through these forums, it's become apparent that maybe that's not one of his strong suits.
Sheriff Applehans, you want to respond to that?
Yes, I'm disappointed that he's questioning my honesty. Definitely, because everything that I've done with the community has been open and honest. Everything that we've talked about at the forum has been open and honest as well. It's one of the core tenets that we run that department on. So disappointed to hear that from Joel Sr. I think one of the things I think I've been most disappointed with Mr. Senior through this campaign that I think he'll end up tolerating if he is elected is definitely a biases towards certain groups and definitely not equal protection under the law based on his own personal thoughts and personal biases. And so that's definitely not anything that Albany County needs as their leader.
Thank you. Mr. Senior.
Yeah, if there's any indication that I would be biased towards any group, I would love some type of evidence that points to that, because that's not who I am. When I talk about honesty, I believe the minutia and the tiny details are important. Just last week, there was an article in the Laramie Boomerang about all sheriff's office vehicles are now equipped with in-car cameras. Well, I've seen some of the sheriff's office vehicles since then. There's no cameras hanging from anywhere inside the vehicle. A lot of those are still in the trunk.
Sheriff Applehans.
We're getting a little off topic, but all of the vehicles that we have in service have in-car cameras. All of our deputies have body cameras as well. And like I said, we just made a new order to expand our fleet to get cameras into a lot of the new cars that we're ordering, and then the new cars that we're bringing into service as well. Again, a part of that honesty piece that we talked about in terms of what is being observed and what is actually happening.
Thank you. Sheriff Applehans, you've said you'll reduce traffic fatalities. How will you do that?
In 3 ways. We're looking at it through education through the community, enforcement of our traffic laws, and then trying to get involved more with the engineering of our roads. And so working with partners to either redesign our roads, do speed studies, get more signage in some of those areas where we know that traffic crashes, specifically traffic fatalities, occur most. And so we've really worked on the first 2 because they were 2 that were, really in our wheelhouse, trying to get more education out to the public, and then definitely enforcing those laws. And we've been continuing to work with our partners on the 3rd one in terms of trying to change the roads the way they look like to make them safer for our community.
Mr. Senior.
Well, I would like to see more DUI enforcement in rural areas. I'm aware of several crashes that occurred out in the middle of nowhere where alcohol was a factor. Meanwhile, a lot of patrolling is done, within 5 miles of city limits. So I believe if we're going to reduce fatalities, we need to be, closer to those areas in our rural communities where people are consuming alcohol and leaving intoxicated all the way to town.
Anything to add?
Yes, we've increased our DUIs quite a bit. We've been able to train our staff at a high level and increase a lot of our DUIs. So we're also getting them not only in our rural areas, but definitely here in Laramie as well. So we look at every DUI that we take off the road as potentially saving a life. The more DUIs you have on the road, the more chance there are for those traffic fatalities. And so we look at the whole area in Albany County and do the best that we can to try and get as many of those DUIs off the road.
And speaking of danger on the roads, Mr. Senior, you've said that one thing that you've learned in 20 years on the job is that driving extremely fast to an incident rarely changes the outcome. Can you explain the approach you would take to high-speed pursuits?
Sure. I'm not against law enforcement being involved in pursuits. A lot of crimes have been solved and thwarted due to law enforcement engaging in vehicle pursuits. However, that behavior needs to be reasonable. The deputies need to receive regular training on emergency vehicle operations, and the pursuit policy needs to be dictated by best practices. I'm aware that currently there's at least 6 pursuits that deputies have been involved in that have not undergone a review process. And that's an issue, because if there was a violation of policy or there needs further training, you don't know that until you do those pursuit reviews.
Thank you. Sheriff Applehands?
Yes, unfortunately, pursuits occur within law enforcement. And what we've done at the sheriff's office is create an environment, both through our policy and through our training, to where those deputies, if they engage in a pursuit, they always have the ability to terminate that pursuit. And that was one of the big changes, and that is one of those best practices that we have within law enforcement, is to able to terminate a pursuit, and use other means to affect the stop or to affect the crime. And so we've been able to do that on there as well. We do have pursuit reviews where we bring boards together for every pursuit that we have. We schedule those out to where people can get together and do a good incident review of those pursuits. And so we continue to do so, and that's a best practice as well. And we'll continue to do so underneath my leadership.
Thank you. Mr. Senior, anything to add?
Just that there's 6 pursuits that have not been reviewed.
Sheriff Applehands?
Yes, some of those are recent, and some of those are in the next couple months. A lot of times we combine them together because they involve some of the same deputies, and we do them all at once. So I don't think the concern is warranted. We do them, and we will continue to do them.
Here we have a question from the public. Mr. Senior, much has been said about providing mental health training for deputies in the Sheriff's Department, but how important is it for this department to have a strong investigative capability? Beyond having 1 or 2 deputies follow up on a case, should there be a lead investigator who would oversee all of the gathering of evidence related to a case?
It's absolutely critical that on an investigation, a lead investigator is assigned. The way I've always done it in the past, once that lead investigator is assigned, they're responsible for everything in that case from start to finish. That means when the chief or sheriff shows up at your crime scene, they're going to do what you instruct them to do. They're not going to go in, they're not going to contaminate your crime scene. They're responsible for any follow-up that needs done, and they're held accountable if that follow-up is not conducted in a timely manner. They're also responsible for any court preparation and making sure that the case is trial ready.
Thank you. Sheriff Applehands?
Yeah, this is a thing that we already do. So I've expanded the investigations department underneath my leadership, underneath my term. We had 1 when I currently got there. Now we have 2 senior deputies that have received high-level training for those investigations. And when we do have a high-level investigation or a critical incident, that detective is called out, and then they take over that investigation. Depending on the type of investigation, sometimes we have some of our patrol deputies help out with that as well, help share the load, but always making sure that we're doing everything we can to where we can have a good investigation. If it results in a prosecution, a good prosecution that can be tried successfully by that Albany County attorney.
Anything to add? Okay. Sheriff Applehans, what would it mean for Albany County if your opponent won?
I think it would be a bit of a regression back to what it was prior to me getting there, where we'd go back to some of the practices that weren't working at the time. So definitely having more of that selection in terms of who can do what within the office, selection on who gets what type of service out in the community as well, and really kind of revert back to that, to be honest, to that good old boys club that they had prior to my arrival. I know that that's a big concern, not only of myself, but of people within my office that are currently working.
Mr. Senior.
Sure. That's the narrative that Aaron's been pushing, and it couldn't be further from the truth. I've got over 21 years of law enforcement experience. I've learned a lot of good skills during that 21 years. A lot of the things that I want to improve upon is because I know what doesn't work. I know how law enforcement has kind of fallen behind in the times, both in the way they do business and in the way technology has advanced. Those are the things I'm focused on improving. There's no good old boys club. You heard me say multiple times, most qualified person. Not only am I the most qualified person for the job of sheriff of Albany County, I'm also going to promote the most qualified people in my agency every time. Quality of service is important to me, and I believe our citizens deserve to have the most qualified people for the job.
Thank you. Sheriff Applehans, anything to add?
Yeah, the qualifications for the sheriff's office doesn't just deal with law enforcement. We have law enforcement, we have the jail, we have a fire warden, we have EMA, we have search and rescue, we have civil service. So I'm the only candidate that has experience in every single one of those areas. I'm also the only candidate that's been promoted and has that supervisory experience and that administrative experience to take over an office of this size. This is the largest office within the county. So I think I've shown that been able to do so in the time that I've been in it.
Thank you. So this is the final question we'll have tonight. It's for both of you, but we'll start with Sheriff Applehans. And I feel like it's kind of the overarching question of this race and the role of the Albany County Sheriff. There's no shortage of videos out there of police brutality from all across the country. And for a long time in Albany County, when people raised concerns here, they were told that that doesn't happen here. That doesn't happen in our community. And in the past couple of years, we have now seen 3 separate federal civil rights lawsuits alleging all sorts of misbehavior. So, Sheriff Applehans, you can say that the office is better now that you're in there, and Mr. Senior, you can say that the office will be better when you get in there, but how can the people of Albany County trust the sheriff's office when they've been lied to for so many years? And how do you heal that wound? Sheriff Applehans.
Yeah, like I said, when I took over that sheriff's office, we had a couple of those lawsuits hanging over our head that I inherited from the last administration, and so we've been able to heal those wounds by doing 3 main things. Reaching out to the community, holding those accountable within our office that were breaking the law or that were violating other people's civil rights. And you guys can see that if you Google me, you'll see the Derek Collins situation, the Christian Hanley situation. We've had a couple other ones internally that we've had to deal with as well. And so the community can trust, based on my record, that if any of those incidents happen, which we're doing everything we can to mitigate and make sure that they don't. But if they do, that we handle that transparently, swiftly, and hold those accountable that need to be held accountable.
Mr. Senior?
Sure. Accountability within your agency is crucial. I agree with Aaron on that statement. If someone needs to be fired, they should be fired, absolutely. Aaron's fired one person. Apparently, as he claims, there was a slew of wrongdoing within that agency, yet only one person has been fired. The other individuals apparently just left on their own. He alleges that deputies were breaking the law. Under my administration, if a deputy is breaking the law, they will be charged with breaking the law. There will be a criminal process, and they will be fired. He says one thing, however, we see something completely different.
Sheriff Applehans?
And this is some of the inaccuracies that I've pointed out with my opponent. And so, unfortunately, we've had to terminate multiple people within our agency to hold them accountable. So it isn't just a one-off type of thing, unfortunately, to try and, like I said, clean up our department and move forward in the right direction. So, like I said, every instance that we have, like I said, if it comes up, we hold people accountable. We've been able to do that, and we will continue to do so.
Thank you. So that ends our debate questions. I want to give each candidate a chance to make a closing statement, and let's do a minute and a half. And we will start with Mr. Senior.
Again, I just wanted to thank everyone for being here. I believe this is a very important race. And when you're weighing your options, please look at the details, look at the minutia. It's easy to just stand up here and claim that you've done things that you haven't. It's easy to say what you're going to do. I've been in law enforcement in our community for over 21 years. I love Albany County, I love our citizens, and that's backed by my track record. I've always been an advocate for all of the victims that I've worked with, and I've always looked for ways to improve our community. As your sheriff, I plan on continuing my track record and earning the public's trust. And I'll leave you with that.
Sheriff Applehans?
Yes, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. It's really important that you guys get to come and see and be informed of what your vote, is going to do, the power of your vote. And so, as you can tell from the differences between us today, and then definitely from my track record as being your sheriff for the last almost 2 years, you can see that everything that you see from me is definitely what you get. Service-oriented first, definitely, focuses on mental health crisis, substance abuse, traffic enforcement, accountability, everything that I've said and that I've talked about, I've done, and that's really kind of the difference that you see here. And so, like I said, take a good hard look at both those candidates, and I'm fairly certain you're going to find out that there's one that does say what they want to do, and then there's a candidate that's done what they said that they were going to do and that they follow through. That's rare and something that you see in these elections. And so, again, I thank you for your time. Thank you for your consideration. I look forward for your vote in this election.
And I would like to thank the Political Science Club, the Criminal Justice Club for both helping to set this up. I would also like to thank both of our candidates. Whichever one of you wins, I look forward to being a thorn in your side for the next 4 years. And to everyone here, remember the election is Tuesday, November 8th. Voting is not the only way to participate in democracy, but it is the easiest. So thank you and good night.